A wise turtle once sang, "Peach, you're so cool,"
I guess love really makes a guy come out of his shell.
which are truly profound words, and we're inclined to agree, given her performance over the last year. First, she was a strong hero in the Mario movie, then a full-on playable character in Super Mario Wonder. And if that weren't enough to clear her name as the perpetual damsel in distress, now she's got a new game of her own. Princess Peach Showtime is the newest game from Goodfeel, a studio that's already given us more than its fair share of cozy platformers, from Kirby's epic yarn back on the Wii to Yoshi's crafted world on the Switch. And if you liked either of those games, you'll have a great time with this adventure. And with plenty of new adorable characters to befriend our favorite Peachy princess, it's time for us to do our thing and tell you guys which ones give the most admirable and despicable performances. I'm Kyle with One Up Binge. We hope you have your popcorn and sparkles ready, because the show is about to begin. This is Princess Peach Showtime characters, good to evil. As usual, we'll be starting with our most pure and heroic character and working our way down to the most evil. These characters are the good. And let's not kid ourselves, the gold medal of good has to go to Princess Peach. It's not exactly a hot take to say that Peach is a good person who cares for the people around her, but Showtime stands out even among some of her best deeds. In this game, she decides to go with her toad to Sparkle Theater to treat herself to a good time. But being a Mario game, things don't exactly go smoothly when Grape and the Sour Bunch invade the theater with dark magic. Peach is approached by the theater's guardian, Stella, for help to save the day. It's already admirable that Peach is willing to help in the first place, but for her to do so for a complete stranger, saving multiple lives in the process, including the 10 sparkles, makes her all the more impressive. She's seemingly not even annoyed about having her night off interrupted, which would be totally reasonable, so she more than earns our gold medal for most good. The silver medal of good, of course, has to go to Peach's new friend, Stella. She's an adorable little sparkle fairy who rushes to the aid of her theater staff when Grape takes over. Well, more specifically, she rushes to Peach for help, but we're not going to falter for that. Sure, Stella isn't the one actually doing the fighting, but asking for help when you need it is heroic in its own way. Plus, Stella helps a lot throughout the game. She constantly provides information to Peach, gives her sparkle power to fix the plays, and helps her transform however the situation demands it. Really, she's just as good as Peach in terms of morality. If we had to pinpoint why she gets the second place, it's simply the fact that Peach was helping a place she has no connection with, whereas for Stella, this place is her own world. Taking the bronze medal of good is perhaps one of the biggest umbrella entries we've ever had, the Sparklers. These are the 10 stars of the various plays at Sparkle Theater, and they correspond with the various roles Peach herself assumes throughout the game. Sword fighter, mermaid, cowgirl, figure skater, mighty, patissier, kung fu, detective, and ninja. That one's my favorite. They all have their own sparklers who work to give their audiences a good show. Unfortunately, they spend most of this game tied up. Like, literally tied up. Grape captures them in order to shape their plays to her whims. But thankfully, when Peach and Stella come to save the day, they're more than willing to help her out. In the final battle, they even give Peach all of their sparkle spirits to help her save the theater, and probably the whole island, but more on that later. Next up, we have Cowgirl Peach's Horse from the Cowgirl plays. Some of the plays have their share of characters who were able to resist Grape's negative energy and remain friendly. Among the most memorable was the horse from the Cowgirl performances. This noble steed always seems to have a sense of when the town is in danger, and is the first one to rush to Peach's aid when the situation calls for it. She even helps her to rescue the Cowgirl Sparkler later on, which earns her a lot of brownie points because, honestly, we're still not sure how she got there. From the Wild West to the Deep Blue Sea, next up we have the sea creatures from the Mermaid play. They get a little less credit than the horse for the fact that they mostly help Peach in return for her helping them, rather than the horse who just seemed to be doing heroic deeds by nature. But it doesn't change just how helpful they were. From the little fish and eels that help activate objects in the background to the turtles that give useful rides on the surface, even down to those little hermit crabs that don't really do anything, but they're just so darn cute. But now it's about time we gave some due credit to the most memorable feats in the ensemble cast, starting with the Professor from the Mighty Peach plays. To put it simply, this guy is an absolute Chad. Normally when you think of professors in superhero movies, you think of the guy guys who give exposition and intelligence while the hero does the fighting on the front lines. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the professor takes things a step further. He's the one to see Mighty Peach's potential, and when it comes time to rush the alien planet to save his scientists, Professor remains on the front lines to help Peach in the rescue mission, and like the Cowgirl's horse, he even comes to help save his sparkle buddy later on. He may not have much screen time, but the professor is a reliable friend, and we gotta give him praise for that. Following in the same vein is the junior detective from the detective Peach plays. When the detective Sparkle disappears, that isn't enough to stop his junior detective from helping save the day, even if the police understandably try to keep him from going in alone. Thankfully, with Peach's help, the junior detective is able to help solve the case of a stolen mural in a museum. Later on, he helps to prevent a potential clock tower bombing, which is quite an escalation. The guy is brave despite his relative lack of experience, and hopefully he'll be given a starring role of his own soon enough as a worthy successor to his teacher. And just to make sure we're not missing any, we're placing the performing Theets and audience Theets near the end of the category. There's not a lot to say about these guys really. They're just silly little guys who often need saving throughout the levels. But don't go thinking they aren't helpful though. Oftentimes they'll reward Peach with coins, hearts, or even sparkle gems in exchange for helping out, and in the finale, they all contributed their sparkle to her in the battle against Grape. And if that wasn't enough, just look at those dance moves. And to close the curtain on the good section, we have who we'll call the fancy Theet. You probably remember this guy. He's that little Theet in a top hat with a mustache who always seems to be in some kind of trouble. If he's not stuck across an unbridged gap, he's being literally held hostage for some inexplicable reason. To put it simply, this guy's been through it. Thankfully, he's a nice guy and always shows his gratitude to Peach and Stella for their rescues by giving them dress ribbons. And like the other Theets, he too has some impressive dance moves, which, if you ask me, is the real reward here. Now, before we move into the game's real bad guys, let's go for a quick intermission for the more neutral parties. These characters fall in the gray area. Now, this may seem like a shock. Heck, it might even seem like blasphemy, but the Toads have landed in neutral territory. In the beginning of the game, they come with Peach to the Sparkle Theater to enjoy the show, as cheery and adorable as usual. But when Grape shows up, they're blown outside along with Peach's crown. We're not placing them in the gray area because they did anything morally bad or even particularly questionable, but because, well, they didn't do anything. That scene where they get blown out of the theater, that's the only time they're even in the game. You never see them again, which really makes you wonder what they were up to. Knowing the Toads' loyalty, they surely went to ask for help of some kind, but we can't help but find it strange that they just disappeared after the intro. Next up, we have the theater staff Theets. Oh, Theets, like theater, I get it. Anyway, these guys might seem placed harshly compared to the other Theets, but rest assured, it's not out of any questionable morals. Like the Toads, they just aren't really doing that much. But honestly, we do have to question the ethics of the shopkeep Theet, selling his wares in the middle of an involuntary quarantine. And closing out our gray area is the first of Grape's dark magic underlings, the rival figure skater. You might think this guy belongs in the bad to evil section, and that's totally valid. He does hijack the Theet's ice skating performances and doesn't mind using a little trickery to do so. But at the end of the day, he doesn't seem malicious necessarily. He's not attempting to hurt anyone, he just wants to be a good figure skater, and when Peach and the Theets give him a graceful enough performance, he's moved by their sparkle so much that he willingly lets them be. Granted, he repeats this process 3 times, but you know what? Maybe the guy just really liked their skating. We're gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe him and Peach can perform together one day. But for now, we move on to the more sour side of the game's ensemble cast. These are the bad to evil characters. Kicking off the bottom 5 are the alien invaders from the Mighty Peach play. Look, we get it. Aliens are gonna invade. It's human nature, or alien nature. We're not going to say that the aliens are necessarily irredeemable monsters for that reason. That said, we're also not going to pretend it's perfectly fine that they're abducting Theets from their home planet to do who knows what. And considering how hostile they were to Peach and company when they came to rescue their friends, it's safe to assume they weren't planning a nice little tea party. It's one thing for an alien creature to kidnap, but the Dark Kung Fu Master surely knew that kidnapping was a big no-no. In the Kung Fu plays, he shows up to challenge the current teacher, leaving Peach to step up to defeat him and save the day. Being a bit of a bully is bad enough, but the second act escalates his evil even further. He commissions his underlings to kidnap the teacher's children to lure Peach over for a fight. He lands this low not just for that deed, but for the fact that he doesn't even let up in the Kung Fu Sparkler rescue stage. If this guy approaches your dojo, do not let him in. The bronze medal of evil has to go to, well, we're gonna need a lot of them. The Sour Bunch Underlings. There are many, and they definitely warrant their low placement. Sharing Madame Grape's dark magic. These guys are always getting up to no good, to varying degrees of course, but they're never nice. Whether it's tormenting innocent bystanders in the sword fighter play, or plotting a literal terrorist attack in the detective play. Grape's underlings are a real bunch of trouble. I mean, they have no problem with kidnapping and terrorism. The silver medal of evil has to go to Grape's second-in-command soldiers, the Darkles. Disco Wing, Light Fang, Projector Cat, and Spot Leon. These four are all equally devoted to their master's cause to stage the ultimate tragedy, but they're not quite into acting. They're more like producers, each of the first 4 floors of the theater being guarded by one of them. If we had to analyze the more villainous ones, we'd say that Projector Cat is the worst of the 4, given how it isn't directly commanded to attack Peach like some of the others, and it's the most clever and mischievous of the bunch. Next would be Disco Wing, who's also a free spirit, but a less intelligent one to be honest. After that would be Light Fang and Spot Leon, who we'd call slightly less evil due to the fact that they don't seem to be able to talk like the other two and behave more like pets. Gigantic, menacing, violent pets. But there is one thing to note about the Darkles. They're only defeated when their dark magic cores are overcome by Peach and Stella's sparkle, which begs the question, where did those cores come from? And yeah, we already know. The gold medal of evil, unsurprisingly, goes to the villainous Madame Grape. As we mentioned earlier, Grape is the game's main antagonist, and her goal is to turn the Sparkle Theater into the stage for what she calls the ultimate tragedy. Why she's doing this and what she means by it is anyone's guess, but her method is pretty simple. She's used dark magic energy to barricade the hotel, trapping the actors and audience inside, and tormenting them via her sour bench servants. Now, it could just be her very Kirby villainesque design, but we kind of expected there to be some backstory reveal on Grape near the end. Maybe she was once a sparkler herself, and wants revenge on the theater for not respecting her work. Or maybe she got too full of herself. But then we realized, well, this isn't a Kirby game. It's a Peach game, which is adjacent to a Mario game. As a result, you won't be too surprised to learn that its villain doesn't have any particularly unique ambitions. Grape is just plain evil through and through. She literally destroyed the entire island, nearly ending countless lives in the process, just to put on a good show. Too bad her tragedy was immediately undone, but if it's any consolation, Grape, you did have a pretty good final battle. We'll give you that much.